I can see that.
Let's begin the conversation this way, and I'm sure you heard the many different reactions to the action that your campaign team has taken to bring an injunction onto the intended primaries that's supposed to have happened on Saturday. Again, the reactions, what do they tell you?
They tell me that people do not necessarily appreciate the details, and that's the reason we're having this conversation. It's important to note that we are here because of the actions and inactions of some leadership in the party. Let me give you a background to this. Dr. Duffuor is no mean a person in this country and in the NDC. He's been a former Bank of Ghana governor, Deputy Bank of Ghana, then Bank of Ghana. He's been a finance minister. He's opened, several businesses in this country, employing thousands of people. A mathematician from Legon, somebody who has studied public finance. So he is one that is thorough and pays attention to details. He has offered himself to lead the NDC. That's indeed the NDC opening up nominations for the flag bearer because the party allows for that. It's not as if the party wanted a coronation. If the party wanted a coronation, they could have said it. So there's a contest. The party then decided to be innovative and said they were going to use a photo album. We were told that after the presidential vetting, we will be given the set photo album. I took the hard drive for that photo album, but it wasn't given. On the 17th of April, Dr. Duffuor's team wrote to the party requesting for the photo album because there was a need for us to mine that data to be satisfied that we are going to an election with a credible voters register, because that is the trust of any free, transparent, and fair election. The party did not respond to that letter on the 17th of April. Dr. Duffuor followed up again on the 2nd of May, requesting for the said photo album. There was no response to that letter. Then the party electoral committee met with the representatives of the aspirants on the 4th of May. Bear in mind, we're having an election on the 13th of May. On the 4th of May, then we were furnished with an incomplete photo album. When I say incomplete, that is because the photo album that was given us, initially the committee said it was 228.
Right.
However, when we got the data and looked at it, it was 220. That is why we are tagging it as incomplete. We decided to work with that data or photo album generated and provided by the party. Within 2 days, that's on the 5th and on the 6th, we were able to work and identify some actions, anomalies in the photo album generated by the party given us. What does a responsible candidate do? Dr. Duffuor gathered this document, evidence of infractions. That's a 40-page document.
Okay.
Then authored a letter. The letter then advised that this is what we've identified in the document given us. We are having an election on the 13th. What does a reasonable person do? Postpone the election, call all stakeholders to a meeting to agree on a time frame to clean up the incomplete photo album. Hopefully by that time it will be complete. The party again did not write back to us. So 3 letters written, no official response from party. Yeah, that's on the 7th. The election is on the 13th.
Right.
We then have some officials of the party making pronouncements. Their actions did not inspire confidence as if he even didn't have any case. What does Dr. Duffuor do? He would have to speak after exhausting the internal structures of the party. He would have to go to court to be heard. If they would not do the right thing, the court would then force them to do the right thing. So every step of the way, Dr. Duffuor and his team have respected the structures of the party, have engaged them, but he's virtually been treated with contempt. So we are here because somebody has not done this job properly, and the hard thing must be done. Whether he's going to win or lose is immaterial. The party must be strong. The party must pay attention to details. It does not come to some of us as a surprise. The party is in this state because 2 general elections, the party was unable to collate its own results. So if you are not paying attention to the details, the grassroots and the reaction should rather be directed to the party, the individuals that are not doing their job as they are supposed to do. So that is why we are here, my brother.
I see. Now, the question about Mr. Abraham Amaleba, head of legal directorate of the NDC, and he's suggesting that he is not the only one who is livid, but there are many others who are angry because the matter you have taken to court is frivolous, is vexatious, and it has no legs to stand on. What is your reaction to that?
He is a lawyer. I understand he has a vested interest in this whole process. We'll wait for the court hearing, and the outcome is what all of us respect. So I'll not be responding to an emotional sentiment from Amaleba, because we all know he is. I respect him very much, but he does have a vested interest in this whole process, and we'll let the court decide.
Are you able to say whether or not Team Kwabena Duffuor was able to exhaust all the internal processes before heading to court?
I have itemized how Dr. Duffuor and his team have exhausted the internal process and the behavior of those in charge that has resulted to Dr. Kwabena Duffuor using the law court to force them to do the right thing. And indeed, it's not only Dr. Kwabena Duffuor talking. We should also pay attention to what Kojo Bones, another aspirant, is saying. He's virtually saying the same thing, supporting Dr. Duffuor's move for a postponement as to clean the voters register. So if you have a contest and 3 aspirants have availed themselves and 2 of them have issues, we are yet to hear from the former president whether he's even combed the photo album, whether he's identified any infractions. It would be nice for us to also hear from them. But you see, why the rush? I understand people were prepared for May 13th. But if we as a party will be taken seriously, we have to do things right. And that is going to come at a cost. That is what is meant by doing hard things. We need to be able to make hard calls. And that is exactly what Dr. Kwabena Duffuor is doing. And I'm very positive that this action is going to strengthen the party moving forward, because people are going to be more vigilant and more thorough in their work.
Well, now the Electoral Commission says they will not be able to supervise the elections, even if the outcome of the court hearing is that go ahead as a party to organize these primaries, because they will not be able to mobilize resources within that short period of time. Some aspirants who have spoken to us, the sidelines, have suggested that a postponement of the activity planned for Saturday would mean they spending some more money and time and resource that they haven't planned for. Is Team Duffuor aware of this? What do you say to that?
My brother, I do understand and identify the frustration. In fact, that cost is going to come to all of us, because we'll have to go again. But the question is, what is the opportunity cost? Do we then gloss over the irregularities identified and go into an election with a flawed voter photo album? Would we accept that at the national level? No, we won't. So yes, we understand there's a cost implication. We understand people are frustrated. We understand there's a time, people are going to spend more time. But we should look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is insisting on the right thing being done. And if we are unable to get it, if we are able to get it right as a party, then we can be able to get it right when we govern this country, because that is more serious business. Not to say the party's management or the party's reorganization is not serious, but comparing that to national, we've got to use this electoral process as a test case for our national election come 2024. So yes, I do identify with the challenge. I do identify with the cost. But it's a hard decision to take, but it must be taken.
The aftermath of this whole pull and push, and Professor Jampo says that he is disappointed that it had to get to this point, because then dirty linen of your party will be washed in public. Is Dr. Kwabena Duffuor as concerned as Professor Ransford Jampo is that the aftermath of this could affect the NDC and, if you will, its chances at the general elections of 2024?
How is the House organizing itself and they end up getting it right affects its chances? This is the House NDC's internal affair. And if the NDC have used any, when we wrote the letter on the 17th, we didn't say anything to the public. When we wrote the letter on the 2nd, we didn't say anything to the public. But we realized that there was a pattern which is unjustifiably, the pattern of making sure that some candidates are disadvantaged, whether it's a perception or reality. But the perception is that some people were working towards disadvantaging some candidates. We were not going to allow that. So insisting on the right thing being done, I don't see how that helps the fortunes of the NDC. It's rather strengthening the NDC and other political parties to learn lessons from it. And the most important thing in this whole exercise is the opportunity to identify that there are certain things we as a party need to pay attention to and work towards. So for me, it's a wake-up call, which rather to be applauded. So I do not see the leg or the reasoning or the claim of for example. However, I respect his view on it.
I see. Hold the line for me, Antonio. Let's connect with Mustafa Gbande. He is Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. Mustafa, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Good to have you here. Now, Dr. Duffuor's team are unfazed about all the back and forth. Your party's head of the legal directorate has been saying that their case has no legs to stand on. But did you extend an olive branch to Team Duffuor such that it wouldn't have become necessary for them to have gone to court?
Thank you very much, Dennis, and I'm happy to be with you this morning. And good morning to my other brother at the other side. As a Deputy General Secretary, my only plea to them is that they must look beyond what they think and the academic exercise that they have advanced. It's good for policy reformation. It's enough. They have shown what they can do, but they should be mindful of the consequences and the repercussions if their action succeeds in distracting the activity as planned on Saturday. Johnny, you will recall that elections are not organized arbitrarily. And so before we start any election, we agree on what is called election guidelines. And those guidelines are approved by NEC, National Executive Committee, made up of reps from all the regions. In these regulations, apart from all other processes that we adopted as transparent measures of the election, we have also agreed that the substantive document to guide the election as a reference will be a delegate list, and that because of time, we should give aspirants a delegate list 5 clear weeks before election. So, Johnny, 6 weeks today, Dr. Duffuor's team and any other presidential aspirant took delivery of their delegate list. A delegate list they have not complained about till today. That delegate list is a superior document which was used for all the organizations that we did. National Executive Committee, under the assurance of ensuring more transparent processes, decided that we should try and compile an album which comes with some advanced features from the delegates list, such as trying to get pictures of all voters onto the document. So the only difference between the voters list, the delegate list, and the voters register is a picture that we import onto that document. What it will do is to rather further reduce the errors of an election by curing the inefficiencies of impersonation or the likelihood of impersonation. So you realize that the album was going to further strengthen and ensure transparency. Now, Johnny, even in the compilation of the album, they took delivery of about 80% of the album 2 weeks ago. And I repeat, 2 weeks ago.
Well, Adam disagrees with you on that.
Well, so when they took delivery of it, they then came up with all the errors that you saw. So before the letter came out, they approached the elections committee. So a meeting was called. That meeting was for them to take delivery of the remaining about 50 constituencies that was outstanding of the album. So because they came to the meeting with such grievances which we think that were within their rights, the elections committee assured them that they were going to peruse all the allegations they had made, identify the errors if they really existed, correct same, and then hand them over the remaining 50 albums plus the corrected version of the 225 they have already received. As soon as they left the meeting, they decided to put out the letter you saw making the rounds. In that letter, they did not indicate to the public that they had taken delivery of a voter delegate list 6 weeks ago. They did not indicate to the public that they have also taken delivery about 80% of the album, out of which they did the analysis and came out with the errors. Johnny, if you do not have the delegate list, what information did they rely upon to check the inefficiencies of the album? Now, they wrote the letter. The letter came out in the afternoon of the day they had the meeting. The following day, they were in court. They have clearly denied the General Secretary and all of us the opportunity to come into the matter and resolve their grievance.
Oh, but what caused the delay in giving them the documents that they, which is the subject of contention now, earlier than when we gave it to them for them to be able to vet it and then know that there were discrepancies therein?
Okay, so Johnny, vetting of a document is fully their right. And I'm saying that let me assure my brother Adam that no one is against the errors they have detected and raised. Those are very common exercises that we encounter when you are building a document for election for which stakeholders have interest. It is within their right to ensure the kind of vigilance they had ensured. Having identified things was to be subjected to resolution so that the errors will be corrected, and then as stakeholders we can move on. All right? So when they identified those errors, and let me also say that the album is a supplementary document. It is not a substantive document of the election.
But you said you were going to use that to enhance the process, correct?
Correct. We were going to build that because, Johnny, we have this kind of elections once a while. So in building the album, what it meant is that if we're able to use that and to succeed, next year or coming years, we will no longer be using the delegate list system. We would have adopted fully the album system. And so this was the only time we could build safe. So it is not as if the album is the document that will show them who are their delegates. They already know their delegates. They already know who they are and know where they came from.
Okay.
They don't have a challenge with that document.
Okay. Let me
Maybe Adam will be telling me that they have not received the delegate list because in the past.
Let him say. Adam, so you've heard Mustafa so far. What do you say? Did you indeed receive these documents and in fact you are using their list to confirm whether or not the same details were contained in the album as Mustafa is suggesting? What do you say?
Thank you and good morning to Mustafa. I find Mustafa's claim how curious. Why do I say so? As Deputy General Secretary, is Mustafa saying that if the Electoral Commission of Ghana brings up an idea to enhance an electoral process, such as photo album, and does not get it right, Mustafa, General Secretary, would just gloss over it? I mean, then what's the relevance of the photo album? Why would we invest in it? Is Mustafa and the party now saying that the photo album is immaterial to this entire process? I do not think so. And it's also wrong for Mustafa to think that we've not identified errors with the delegate list he's referring to. We have. But we thought because of the initiative, which we applaud, of using the photo album it will be better to use the ultimate document, because a document which is a spreadsheet and a document which has the image and other details of the delegates, which one would we use? So we waited to have the photo album. It's the reason why we wrote them on the 17th of April and the 2nd of May. And it's Mustafa telling me that not responding to those letters shows any respect or regard to the candidate, Dr. Duffuor, or any other. We wrote them on 2 occasions. Maybe Mustafa is not aware because that letter was not addressed to him. It was addressed to the General Secretary and Mr. Mate. What we are saying is that no one is interested in making this a big issue. It's a simple issue. We've identified errors which Mustafa agrees is a good thing to do because we are being vigilant. All we're asking for is postpone the election because the time is near. As we speak, just last night, the Electoral Commission says the NDC have not given them the delegate list or the photo album to be used for the election. And we are just 3 or so days to the election. So this is just, we need to have cool heads, identify that we've not gotten certain things right, invite all stakeholders to the meeting, agree on a time frame, and let's fix it. As a party, we do not need to go back and forth on this. We will imagine the party had even responded to the letter that Dr. Duffuor wrote, the last letter Dr. Duffuor wrote advising that we postpone the election. Imagine they responded to it. Mustafa will be providing you evidence to that. So when you've not inspired confidence, when you've acted in ways that the candidate feels you do not want to be fair, these are the things that happen.
I see.
So, I agree with Mustafa. I mean, his initial comments were very reconciliatory. I identify with that.
Right.
But the issue is that we should pay attention to the current errors that have been identified. Fix it. We understand the cost implication of all this action. We do. But we do think that as an institution, we need to take hard decisions. And this is one of them.
Mustafa,
fix the error, let's go to the election, and everybody will be happy whatever the outcome is.
I see. Mustafa, is the NDC going to postpone the primaries or the elections? Because I've heard the argument of the cost implications to the party and to aspirants as well. Is the NDC going to postpone these elections?
The elections will not be postponed, and I must state it very clearly that in the absence of the photo album, which Adam acknowledges that because of similar concerns that they have raised, we have not even submitted the album to the Electoral Commission, because by law, we are not obliged to go by the album. The album does not form a substantive argument. If indeed they had any challenge, and let me state that Dr. Duffuor's team is surrounded by people who have a very vast experience in handling elections.
Right.
And they are aware that election matters are not matters arbitrarily determined by leadership. They are matters that would have been determined by the guidelines to elections. And that if they felt that, because when we put the guidelines out, there was nothing like a photo album discussion. There was nothing at the time. None. Even before they picked nominations, they didn't even know that we're going to build a photo album. It was subsequent that in our meeting at FEC, the national chairman felt that if we can, we should build a document that will have pictures. And so don't forget that it is the same delegate list that they have. The only difference is that we are now going to export pictures from the EC database onto a document that will build up the albums. Let me also say that
are you suggesting to us that the party did no wrong in not getting the album right?
We are not saying that we didn't get it right. There was nothing right or wrong. As stakeholders, we all have responsibility to check the system. And when you have checked the system and have identified that there's an error, you complain, and same would have to be corrected. And don't forget that when they raise the issues of the litany of errors they have identified, I am not also saying that those errors were legitimate or were not legitimate. The Electoral Commission of our party assured that because you are complaining of what has already been given to you, we will go back and correct the errors, check them, and then give you a full complement of the album. Now, Johnny, respectfully, if they were not given a delegate list, which constitute the master list of the election,
I think that you made this point already. So let's
would have been flawed.
So let's make progress. Now, you have already taken a stance to suggest that the elections will not be postponed, even though we do not know what the outcome of the court hearings will be. Adam and his team from Dr. Kwabena Duffuor's camp are suggesting that postpone and let's get it right so that policy is firmed up for the future. So at least you both agree on the point that you want to pilot this for it to be used in the future. It is the processes leading up to getting it right. That's where the issues are. But you have both taken a hard stance. Postpone, and one says, I won't postpone. Will this help the NDC?
Johnny, we will postpone an election if any provision in the guidelines have not been met. 92.7. Whereas we are under obligation to discharge this responsibility, we believe that we have fully complied. And I must say that maybe Adam will be telling us that his team also have the same problem with the delegate list they have. I'm sure his answer will be in affirmation. Johnny, the way forward is that this issue about presidential album have nothing to do with parliamentary election. As we stand, their decision has a tendency, and we will not postpone because all processes have been complied, except if the court so directs that we should not do so. Because we are all locked up in the court.
I see.
But they would have succeeded using the court system to frustrate the election. Mind you, that they have denied the General Secretary the opportunity to even hear them.
How so?
When they wrote the letter, even before the letter got to us for us to invite them, they had already headed to court.
They went to court on Tuesday, but Antonio insists that they had written previous letters that were not responded to by the General Secretary. That's a legitimate concern, yes?
I don't know the letter he's referring to, but the letter I am aware of was the letter they wrote on Monday after they met with the Elections Committee. Dealing with the Elections Committee is dealing with the office of the General Secretary. And so when you are dissatisfied with determinations of the Elections Committee, it is within their right to come before the General Secretary, which they have written. On Monday, the letter came out around 4 p.m. By morning, 2 o'clock, I think 11 o'clock, they were already in court trying to put injunction. So when you secure a summons to a matter that could have been resolved internally, you have denied the body charged with the responsibility to hear you out that opportunity. I believe that the issues they are complaining about are issues that can be resolved internally.
I see. Well,
when you are compiling a register for the purposes of election, you go through processes such as registration. After registration, you do an audit process, you do exhibition, and then you do election. Because the register is already clean, the delegate list is already clean, They had it 6 weeks ago. They have not complained. That delegate list is so clean that there is no any error on it. If we had all completed the album system, I'm sure that we would have been happier, because our commitment and the commitment of the General Secretary have been that we should be able to organize a very transparent election so that the concerns going into the elections will not be met, to the extent that when we finish, trying to manage all parties together as a united front will not be difficult.
I see.
So really, we are more committed to ensuring a transparent election than they think.
The Electoral Commission has pulled out of the processes. They say it is too close for them to marshal resources to be able to deliver optimally for you. How does that sound to you?
Among the excuse given by the Electoral Commission has nothing to do with time, because we have been engaging the Electoral Commission until Duffuor went to court. That conversation never came up. Johnny, you are aware of our long-standing relationship issues with the Electoral Commission. Nonetheless, because the General Secretary and the party would want to have a credible, transparent election, and the credibility of an election rests on the non-interference of a referee. Johnny, so we believe that much as we are not sitting well with the Electoral Commission, the Electoral Commission will enforce the regulation of the election better than any other internal mechanisms that we would have used.
Right.
We can use our own election directives to organize our elections. We didn't need the Electoral Commission. But because of the assurance of transparency, we engaged the Electoral Commission. Johnny, let me ask. Dr. Duffuor is in court with the issue of presidential election. We contracted the Electoral Commission to supervise 2 elections: 1, parliamentary election; 2, presidential election.
But is it not the position of the law per the CI and the rules contained in the CI that the Electoral Commission must supervise all such elections of such magnitude? Is it not?
That is so.
So when you come back to say that you can actually go ahead and organize the elections using the election directorate and not necessarily bring in the Electoral Commission, that's faulty, is it not?
Well, at the end of the day, we have commissioned the Electoral Commission under a contractual obligation to supervise 2 elections, one of which is parliamentary, the other is presidential. If the Electoral Commission is pulling out because Dr. Duffuor is seeking to injunct the process until some clarity is given to him, what about the parliamentary election? If the Electoral Commission agree with us that it was going ahead to hold the parliamentary election, is anybody in court injuncting parliamentary election? So that is why some people feel that the decision of the Electoral Commission, in as much as there's a pending court process, is in itself one that is in pursuit of our long-standing bad relationship.
I see.
But we don't want to deal with that yet.
Dr.
We are hoping that tomorrow, from today, Adam and his team will understand that they have done much. 2, they will understand that we can still resolve our differences and move on. A letter was written 2 days ago inviting them for a meeting.
Okay.
They have declined to show up for that meeting. And Adam is away.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Now, Dr. Siribo Kweku spoke with us. He's the Director of Electoral Services at the Electoral Commission yesterday on Ghana Tonight with Alfred Okansi. And he mentioned that even the outcome of the case in court will still not matter because the time frame, because you mentioned that conversation about time, it never came up. as fresh as yesterday, 10 p.m., Dr. Sribo Kwaku said the time frame is too short for them to be able to marshal resources to come and supervise the election, so they will not participate. And I want to submit that to you.
Well, that will be a breach of what we have agreed, because in the absence of a court injunction, of which the injunction hasn't stopped any process leading to the election, the injunction, the applicant actually pleaded to the court to be heard on Monday. If that was the way to go, from now to Saturday, no process would have stopped. The real activity is on Saturday. As we speak, we have also secured an order for the matter to be heard on Friday, which is tomorrow. Nothing would have impeded the Electoral Commission in doing their work. And the Electoral Commission has been engaging with us, and nothing of this sort has come up. The Electoral Commission have not at any point in time complained that time was not on their side to be able to deploy logistics. So we are in court to resolve a matter. Nothing bars the Electoral Commission from deploying logistics into the various election centers. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
I see. Let me bring in Adam here.
So that is why some people believe that Dr. Duffuor and his action is opening the party up for all of these.
And you think that will make things difficult for you to try and unify the party and forge a front that is strong enough for the 2024 elections?
Dr. Duffuor is a respected senior member of the party. And I believe that in this election, as he is contesting for presidential, his son is running for parliamentary, unprecedented asset. He will not do anything to destroy the fortunes of the party he is seeking to lead. If only his actions are so genuine, I believe that we'll put all of these coming up into consideration and be guided on the consequences that comes after.
I see. Adam, let me bring you in. Do you think that the aftermath of this action in court, if the case is ahead and decided upon by tomorrow in court, it will have any effect on the candidacy of Dr. Kwabena Duffuor's son, who wants to also lead the party from a constituency level as member of parliament?
Thank you. Why will that have an effect on him? They are two different adults. So I really do not see why we have to bring the son in this matter. He's over 40. He's ready to lead. And he's different from his father, even though they have biological relation. But it's important to note that most of us said they've given us parents delegate list 6 weeks ago. How come, if that was a base document that the NDC was going to use for the election, they didn't give the Electoral Commission that list? Yesterday, we all heard Dr. Sribo saying that the list or the album for, whether you want to call it delegate list or photo album for the election, which was supposed to be given to the Electoral Commission 7 days before the election, had not been given until last night. Is Mustafa saying that the Electoral Commission will be given the list on the day of election? I mean, we've gotten something just wrong. It's important we accept it, buy time, and correct it. This is a simple matter. Dr. Duffuor is not saying don't have the election. Kojo Bones is not saying don't have the election. The election must happen, but we must do it right. But because it's near, let's postpone it to an agreed date by all stakeholders. How difficult is that? Why are we in a rush to have it on a particular day when we've identified errors? Are we going to have same attitude when we at the national level have a national election when we've identified errors? No, we knew we were going to have election on the 13th of May. How come we brought an innovation that we were not ready for? Is Mustafa saying that the investment that has been made in the incomplete photo album is immaterial at this point? Then why did we invest in as a party in opposition? If the argument is that the photo album is not relevant now, and that what is relevant now is the delegate list, then we should have been told that 6 weeks ago. And I'm telling him, Mustafa, in confidence, that the delegate list is even flawed with infractions and irregularities. But we are just waiting to have the ultimate album, which is the photo album, to communicate to them what our concerns are. So it's really not something we should. And that's how come I find it somehow frustrating that we are having this back and forth. It's a simple matter.
Okay.
Postpone the election. Let all stakeholders come together, agree on how to clean the register, and move forward with the election. It could be a week, it could be two. That will be debated at the said stakeholders meeting. I've already told Mustafa, Dr. Duffuor wrote letters requesting for the album and didn't get a response. That's certainly his deputy general secretary, it wasn't addressed to him. But I've mentioned names, the general secretary and Mr. Mate, who is part of the committee of the party. So, I mean, it's a house matter. This will make the NDC stronger. And I'm sure other political parties are also watching. And it's even going to help Mustafa's work as deputy general secretary when we are going to national elections in terms of how vigilant he should be in policing whatever document the EC brings.
I see.
We have gotten it wrong. Let's correct it. And the only way to correct it is postpone the election. All of us come together and move on. Certainly, it's going to come at a cost. And I've told you, we identify with that. The cost of time, the money, resources, people are ready for this election.
Right.
But if you've done something wrong, it really doesn't matter taking the hard decision of stepping back, correcting it, and moving on stronger.
Don't you get the impression that this, if you like, look-alike of a rigging machine sort of impression that people could infer, especially your political opponents could infer into all of what is happening, could go a long way to hurt the party at the general elections?
Johnny, I mean, our political opponents should mind their business. That's all I'll say. But I mean, I understand it. They will be excited about these developments. But it's certainly going to be short-lived. If the NDC fixes this issue and moves into the election, what are they going to say? The NDC don't have the moral right to say that when they identified errors, they did the right thing by correcting it. So this makes the NDC stronger. But for us to overlook it and for this to fester on, it's going to hurt us in the long run. I already give you evidence. Mustafa will not contest that the NDC on 2 general elections have failed to collate results. That doesn't even send us a signal. We must be vigilant and do the right thing at all costs. It is going to cost us, I agree. But it's important to fix it and get the bigger picture.
I see. Adam Asenyo, I thank you very much indeed for your time. He speaks for Dr. Kwabena Duffuor, who is an NDC presidential hopeful. Thank you so much indeed for your time this morning. Mustafa, you have the final word. What do you say going forward? Don't you also, and I put the same question to you, the impression
Adam said that
the impression of is supposed rigging machinery that may disadvantage some candidates in favor of the other could be good news for the opposition, but bad news for you as a political party hoping to wrestle power from the NPP. Don't you think so?
No. Let me state that the impression is not true by all the explanations I have given. Let me further state that Adam's assertion that the NDC has failed to collect elections twice was generally because of all the people that are paraded into the campaign team of Dr. Kwabena Duffuor.
Oh, that's not fair.
We trusted Rojo Metronunu to help us collect results.
Right.
You are aware that he went and took tea and was nowhere to be found when it mattered most. Is that not too fatal enough to be
what is wrong with drinking tea?
What is very wrong in drinking tea is that you were sent to go and collect results. You were not sent to go and take tea. So I just want to put it on record that if we are talking about the issues of election collation, all the people that constituted the members of Dr. Kwabena Duffuor's campaign team are people we are accusing that they have failed us in the exercise of collation of results.
Solomon Kansa, Dr. Kofi Kukubo, and Asenyo himself.
We didn't want to go into this conversation, but let me tell you, everyone who have an issue with the NDC or John Dramani Mahama today is a member of the campaign team of Dr. Kwabena Duffuor. His campaign team has become a hub that tolerates all the people who are literally against the cause of the NDC today. Today, because of Dr. Kwabena Duffuor's campaign, Koku Anyido, who is not a member of the NDC, has gained voice. And they shouldn't let us descend into this conversation. It will not be good for the credibility of the old man because we respect him.
I see.
Right from the word go, the General Secretary has stated his respect, utmost respect for Dr. Kwabena Duffuor because he was his deputy. Myself sitting here, I'm more or less a son to Dr. Kwabena Duffuor because of his relationship with my former boss. But we will not sit back and allow few individuals drag the party into mud, come back and join the forces against us and singing the same chorus. When, of course, the people who are seated around this same campaign team are the people who have kept us in this ditch.
I thank you very much indeed for your time, Mustafa Gbande. He is the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC.
3FM Sunrise.
Lifestyle radio station.
3FM Sunrise. Are you? Are you? Are you?
8:46 is the time. What do you say?
Well, we've listened to the different factions in this particular situation, and I think points have been made on each side. The question that you posed towards the end, ultimately about what the opposition to the NDC NPP party makes of all of this, I believe Adam says, well, they're going to be relishing in it and enjoying it, but they should ultimately mind their business. But off the back of that, what he says is, if there's a challenge and the party, that's the NDC, are able to demonstrate that they're able to fix issues within the party that could, to their benefit, the general public, citizenry can see that, well, they're able to overcome these issues. But on the other hand, listening to the Deputy General Secretary speaking there's also the stance that, well, come what may, the elections will proceed. So we really look to Friday to see essentially what happens in the courts. But the thoughts have been made. We are bystanders and we are observers, so we wait to see what happens. Yesterday, the issues arose, we got into it. Today, I think there's further clarification. Let's see. And I like
happens. What Mustafa said, that look, it is the presidential primaries that has been injuncted, but the parliamentary primaries have not been injuncted.
Correct.
That's a very instructive thing. So let's see how it goes. William, your honor.
Yeah, I mean, I was asking the same question, why the EC is literally walking away from both elections. We have two primaries.
That's right.
And
that's why I mentioned earlier that the EC is hiding behind this to run away from the thing.
Yeah, so they should come and answer, because I don't see how and why they should walk away from both. But we've had instances. I just saw something going around. The NDC, the MPP went ahead to do an election when it was before court. So it depends. If they think that they have a case, they can go ahead with the parliamentary, and maybe they're also looking at cost. I mean, the NDC may look at cost, because this one would have covered both.
In fact, that was the reason for putting both together, and the MPP also said they would follow suit in that.
If they insist on going ahead, that would mean they would have to come back and do the presidential.
Okay, let's connect on the phone line with Dr. Sribo Okweku. He is the Director of Electoral Services at the Electoral Commission of Ghana. Doc, good morning. Thank you very much indeed for your time. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Doc, let's begin the conversation this way. Your outfit has indicated that you will not be able to supervise the forthcoming primaries of the National Democratic Congress because, number one, you have been served. And as of yesterday on Ghana Tonight, you mentioned also that even if the case is decided upon tomorrow, the time frame will be too short for you to be able to marshal resources to supervise the elections. But the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Mustafa Gbande, just got off the phone. He insists that there are two legs to these primaries. One, there's a presidential primary, and then there are parliamentary primaries that must be held. It is the presidential primaries that has been injuncted, not the parliamentary primaries. Why are you running away from both? He asked.
I don't know whether there are two elections with different registers. Are we using the same register? Because what is in contention is the register, right? And the letter was written to us that we should do both of them. They did not say that we should do one separate from the other. And the issue in contention is the register. So I would think that they should take the time and address the issues surrounding the register so that we get the election going.
Well, given the structure of the Electoral Commission, knowing that you operate from districts all across the country and the constituencies are within good proximity, would you really say that time is the real enemy here if the matter is decided upon tomorrow?
The ballot papers are in Accra here. So we cannot move to the court gives us to go ahead. We'll start the distribution. And taking the ballot papers from Accra to Bolga and the rest, you need some time.
And that's the reason. Well, the NDC is serving notice that the elections will not be postponed, at least from what Mustafa Gbandi says. If they come asking, if you like, nicely or forcefully, will the Electoral Commission budge?
I didn't get that question.
If the NDC comes asking, either nicely or forcefully, after the court ruling, because then Mustafa Gbandi seems to suggest that because of the frosty relationship the NDC has had with the Electoral Commission over the period, the Electoral Commission is perhaps using this to settle those costs. That was what he said a while ago. Is that the case?
I don't know whether he was at the meeting, but I know the chairperson himself said that he understands the stand of the commission. Because he knows that once we have been asked to conduct an election, once there's a call for injunction, we stay away. So Mr. Siri Nkatia says he understands that. So they should not be commenting on issues that they are not privy of. If you saw how we interacted with them in the rest, they are our friends. We are not enemies. And we don't have any scores to settle. There's a court issue. Let's see to that the issue is addressed properly. The court gives a go-ahead, we'll go ahead and do it. We are not interested in fighting anybody over any issue.
Doc, had it not been because of the court issue, would you say that the Electoral Commission was ready and prepared to deliver excellently on Saturday?
We have met them 7 times. With some of them, Mr. Sidikati himself attending. Some too led by the Director for Elections, Mr. Amati. We have done their constituency executive elections. We have done the regional executive elections. We have done the national executive elections. So if we have an issue, why would we do that? The 3 of them and leave this one. We don't have any issues with them. Let them settle the court case and we'll be there to do it for them.
Doc, this register that has become a subject of contention, has the NDC been able to serve you a copy of it as neutral arbiters of the election?
We are here to get our copies.
Come again, please.
We are here to get our copies.
I don't understand. So you have
We
not...
have the question whether we have been served. I said we are here to get our copies.
Okay, so clarity I want is that both sides contesting have received copies, but you who will be supervising the elections have not received a copy of the register.
Yes, the Electoral Commission has not been. They were supposed, according to Mr. Amate, they were going to give them to us yesterday. But I don't know whether because of collision we did not. And we have not. I say it on authority because if it comes to come to me. So we have not received our copies.
Doc, I thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Grateful that you could speak to us.
Yeah, most welcome.
That's Dr. Sibokweku. He is the Director of Electoral Services at the Electoral Commission. 8:54.
Are you?
Hey.
FM Sunrise.
William. Are you?
Yeah, so that was what he was explaining. I mean, he says the The ballot papers are in Accra. So if they decide tomorrow for them to move, especially to the overseas areas, will be problematic. So that was what I was trying to explain to you.
Overseas.
Yeah, I mean, you were mentioning Okakwe, North and Central, but you know, the
overseas constituencies
that they have to travel
and over streams,
cross oceans, and
over rivers.
And rivers.
Well,
you know, so that's expensive.
If up until now they still haven't received the register. What was the NDC waiting for?
No, but he also explained that it's because maybe it's because of the injunction, and so their attention is distracted. But if
the injunction came on Tuesday,
if everything, well, that's the explanation he gave.
Because the point is that if the political party insists that they gave Team Duffuor, Team Kojo Bonsu, Team Mahama the list a long time before now, and so whatever Dr. Duffuor and his team are saying is just blowing hot air, is frivolous vegetation. Yes, no. So, but Bande was very specific that look, the Team Duffuor is able to say the album has inconsistencies because they received the list and the register, so they are checking the inconsistencies in the album as against what is in the register. Now I'm suggesting that if the register had been given to Team Duffuor, Team Mahama, and Team Bonsu earlier, and that it was not going to be updated in any way because we have closed the register. Why didn't they give a copy to the Electoral Commission, who are going to also manage the elections?
Well, I don't know in terms of timing how that would have been an issue if it had gone yesterday, the day before, or today. But what I'm hearing from the EC officer is that they haven't received it, and he's thinking that because of the issues, because they had calls that it was coming. So if it hasn't come, it's because of what is happening on the ground. But at the end of the day, it's still dialogue that should happen, because the NDC made the point that we're going to have the fake
Functional Executive Committee meeting.
And then yesterday we heard all the talking, and this morning we've heard the spokesperson of Dr. Duffuor and the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. At the end of the day, I'm still thinking that they should talk. But the unfortunate thing is the pronouncement from the EC that whatever it is,
we cannot help you.
And that's the big loss in the whole scheme of things. Because at the end of the day, we got the understanding that the register is one.
That's right.
So asking them to come and conduct one election and leave the other may not be possible,
because the register is the bone of contention.
Exactly. So these are explanations that are coming to us so late, and they are also insisting that it's not going to happen despite or in spite of whatever is going to happen today or tomorrow, and that is a big loss for both parties. So quite invariably, it means that the elections will not
happen on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, unless the NDC can say they'll go ahead without the Electoral Commission.
Well, but the ballot papers they say are in Accra. So how are they going to? Because the Electoral Commission would have used the same mode of transport to ferry them across the country. So if the matter is decided tomorrow and the NDC itself decides that okay, we'll use our electoral machinery and will not depend on the Electoral Commission, they still will have to take the ballot papers across the country. And then the question of neutrality comes to play. And the independence and free and fairness of the election, because Team Duffuor is already crying wolf and suggesting that there's some rigging machine in favor of John Mahama.
Yes, so
if
that's
you will.
why
Kojo Bonsu has come to support it. So now if you go ahead and use your internal electoral machinery, you will have a problem.
And when words like presumptive
presidential candidate comes out.
So that's why the EC's role in this is very, very important. And I'm sure the NDC recognizes that fact. And the EC is saying that, look, because of A, B, C, D, even if you resolve your issues today, tomorrow, we will not
be there. Oba.
Oh, not that.
Oba.
He say we will not. He say we can't come. It's a different.
Oba.
Use the words.
We can't come. Is it not the same?
No, they say we won't come.
Yes.
They say they can't come.
Yeah, when you're Oba.
It's not if you say we won't come. It's if they can't, they won't.
Oba.
When you're Oba.
When you're Oba, okay. Yen to member. Member.
Mean to member is unfortunately.
Yes, but member is. But I can come, but I won't come.
So this morning, I think we've tried to give all the parties the platforms to. Dr. Duffuor's spokesperson came.
That's right.
The NDC Deputy Secretary has spoken. The NC has spoken. former President Mohammed's people are not necessarily expected to speak.
And them says they want to hear them speak. It would be nice to hear.
To be nice, but under the circumstance, they can decide not to speak because it is what it is. It's against what is happening. They are not the ones organizing the election.
Yeah,
it is the party and then the Electoral Commission and the contender here, Dr. Duffuor's team, is saying that look, we want ABCD done, and so if the Mahama team speak to be nice, as he put it.
But the suggestion that the people around Dr. Duffuor are those who have brought the NDC into a ditch, from the Deputy General Secretary, a very, very strong comments there, if you ask me.
I mean,
that the people around Dr. Duffuor who have constituted the team of Dr. Duffuor are the ones who let them here. He mentioned Mr. Rojo Metelnunu, that they sent him to go and collect results. He went drinking tea. You know, I wanted to ask I thought that you should not have anything against tea. I mean, Helen drinks her tea on a regular.
She doesn't drink tea.
Coffee. Tea is not as regular.
But you don't add biscuit or bread.
No, just black.
But you are vigilant.
Very much so.
Okay, we'll leave it here.
Usika seme nkoyiana quick credit sia say sika pe ennafom intina yabasa ye be church wo yam bosia bon hyehyɛ ho wutumi bobosia edifi aso ye 3500 Ghana cedis edeko